I always knew my marriage wasn't perfect. After 22 years with Mark, we'd grown apart. Busy schedules, a lack of intimacy, and conversations that slowly reduced to logistics, bills, chores, work. But never, not once, did I think betrayal would come from inside the family I worked so hard to protect. It began with subtle changes. My son, Liam, had moved back home after college, trying to get back on his feet. He was 24, emotionally sensitive, and had always been close to me. We'd sit up late sometimes, talking. At first it was innocent, bonding over shared frustrations, especially about how cold Mark had become. I should have known better. Emotional vulnerability is a doorway. I opened it wide. The boundaries started to blur when I found comfort in Liam's presence more than in my husband's. It felt strange, even wrong, but I told myself it was just maternal closeness. Liam would defend me in arguments. He started learning how I liked my coffee. Small things Mark never bothered with anymore. Then one night, Mark and I had a brutal fight. I broke down in the kitchen. Liam came to comfort me, arms around my shaking shoulders. His hands lingered, too long. That was the beginning of something neither of us had words for. I never crossed a physical line, but emotionally, I did things I can't take back. I confided in Liam as I would a partner. I kept secrets with him about Mark, about my loneliness, about my regrets, and Liam. He didn't push back, he leaned into it. He told me once he'd never love anyone as deeply as he loved me. I should have stopped it then. When Mark found text messages between Liam and me, everything unraveled. Nothing explicit, but enough emotional weight to suggest the truth. The devastation on Mark's face was eclipsed only by what I saw in Liam's eyes. Guilt, confusion, and something disturbingly close to possessiveness. We tried therapy. Mark and I didn't make it. He filed for separation. Liam moved out. I haven't spoken to either of them in over a year. Sometimes people ask me what happened. I say, something I never imagined. Because the one betrayal I never prepared for was the one that came from the child I raised, and the emotional void we both tried to fill in each other. But emotional intimacy, once tangled in the wrong direction, is a knot that destroys more than just trust. It breaks the very shape of love. Emotional infidelity is often misunderstood because it doesn't leave obvious scars. There are no hotel receipts, no lipstick stains, no deleted dating apps. But emotional betrayal leaves a mark far deeper. And when it crosses generational lines, it challenges every idea we hold about love, family, and trust. It began, as many emotional affairs do, with loneliness. When emotional needs aren't met in a marriage, people start seeking connection wherever they can find it. For some, it's an old friend. For others, it's a coworker. But for one woman, let's call her Diane, it was her son. Not in a sexual way, never physical, but the line they crossed wasn't measured in touches. It was crossed in words, glances, and dependencies. Diane had been married to Mark for over 2 decades. Their love had gone quiet. No more shared dreams, no more late night laughter, just routine. Their home was filled with silence more than voices. And when their son Liam moved back home after college, that silence began to shift. Liam was emotionally intelligent, highly observant, and he noticed what his father ignored. He noticed his mother's tired sighs, the way her shoulders tensed, the distant look in her eyes during dinner. At first, Diane found comfort in her son's attention, innocent things. He'd ask her how her day was, offer to cook, sit with her during her favorite shows. In a house where her husband barely noticed her presence, Liam's attention felt like sunlight breaking through a cold, gray sky. She didn't think it was wrong. She told herself it was just a mother and son reconnecting. But that's how emotional infidelity begins, innocently. When Mark would dismiss her feelings or leave her crying in bed, Liam was the one knocking softly on her door. He would say, "You don't deserve to be treated like this." At first, she believed he was just being a good son, but then she realized she was waiting for his validation. She stopped telling Mark how she felt. She told Liam instead. That subtle shift, choosing someone else, even emotionally, over your partner, is the silent start of infidelity. It's difficult to explain how boundaries blur in emotional affairs. There are no flashing red lights. No declarations, Just one line crossed after another, so gently that you don't even realize how far you've gone until you're standing in a place you shouldn't be. Liam, meanwhile, was falling into a role he didn't fully understand. He was becoming his mother's emotional partner, her confidant, her protector. He felt responsible for her happiness, her stability, and the more he filled that role, the more he distanced himself from the role he was supposed to play, her son. It twisted the natural order of things. Diane started to notice the way Liam looked at her, not with lust, but with something else, something possessive, something emotionally consuming, and worse, she didn't pull away. She needed that feeling. It reminded her she was still wanted, still seen, and in the wreckage of a neglected marriage, that feeling became addictive. The danger of emotional infidelity, especially between a parent and child, is that the betrayal isn't just romantic, it's existential. It confuses the foundation of identity. Diane didn't just betray her husband, she compromised the innocence of her relationship with her son. She pulled him into a conflict he didn't have the emotional tools to manage, and in doing so, left both relationships shattered. When Mark discovered the text messages, the betrayal wasn't about sex. It was about intimacy, the kind of emotional sharing that should have been reserved for him. Shared jokes, private fears, longing, was now living between his wife and his son. And while nothing physical had happened, the devastation was complete. Mark didn't care about technical definitions of cheating. What crushed him was the realization that the emotional space once his was now occupied by his child. His own blood, Liam left, the mother-son relationship was damaged, and the marriage was unsalvageable. Diane, in a moment of raw honesty during therapy, admitted she had never felt more seen in years than she did during those quiet moments with Liam. That wasn't something she was proud of, but it was the truth, and sometimes the most painful betrayals are the ones that grow from our deepest unmet needs. This isn't just a story about boundaries crossed. It's a warning that emotional hunger, if ignored for long enough, will find nourishment wherever it can, even in places we once thought sacred, even across generational lines. After the emotional lines between Diane and her son Liam were blurred, a new kind of silence took over the household, not the cold, dismissive silence she once shared with her husband, but an anxious, heavy silence layered with fear. Diane had buried the truth beneath rationalizations. It's just emotional comfort. I'm not doing anything wrong. He needs me too. But the more she justified, the more she realized she was standing in a glass house, and secrets have a way of cracking the walls from the inside out. Diane began living two emotional lives. With Mark, she performed the duties of a wife, dinners cooked, appointments scheduled, politeness without passion. With Liam, she carried the spark, the emotional intensity, the need to feel alive again. But even emotional affairs leave trails. Mark noticed the late night conversations in the kitchen, the shared laughter he hadn't heard in years, just not with him, the way Liam always seemed to come to Diane's defense, even in matters that didn't concern him. At first, Mark thought he was imagining things. Who would suspect this? Who could possibly fathom that a wife would turn emotionally toward her own son? It didn't fit into any category he knew, but then came the texts. One evening, Mark borrowed Diane's phone to check a delivery message. It lit up with a message from Liam. "You don't have to feel alone tonight. I'll be downstairs if you need to talk. I mean it. He doesn't see you the way I do." The ground under Mark cracked open. He didn't scream, he didn't confront her right away. Instead, he spent 3 days pretending he hadn't seen it, watching them, observing their interactions with a new lens, every shared glance, every long silence, every time Liam lingered near her. He saw it now, the emotional intimacy, the unspeakable closeness, the kind of connection that didn't belong between a mother and son. The betrayal wasn't in their words. It was in their energy. On the 4th night, Mark printed the texts and left them on the kitchen table. No words, no accusations, just evidence, and when Diane walked in and saw them, everything stopped. She tried to explain. She said nothing physical happened. He said, "That doesn't matter." She said, "I was lost." He said, "So you turned to our son." And that's when she broke. She cried in a way that wasn't just guilt, it was grief. Because in that moment, she knew she hadn't only lost her husband, she had lost the role of mother as she once knew it. The emotional space she and Liam had built, secret by secret, had become a structure too heavy for either of them to hold. It wasn't just Mark who felt betrayed. Liam did too. When Diane finally sat him down and told him the emotional entanglement between them had to end, his eyes hardened. He said, "You needed me. I was there for you, and now you're cutting me off like I was the problem." She whispered, "I let something happen that shouldn't have. I crossed a line I can't uncross." Liam stood quiet for a long time, then simply said, "So it was all fake." That moment broke something permanent. The emotional fallout was not a single explosion. It was a slow, quiet burn. Liam moved out a week later. He didn't take much, just his books, his laptop, and a silence so loud Diane couldn't sleep. Mark left soon after. Therapy was attempted but never completed. The three of them sat together once in a sterile office, where no one could find the right words, because how do you explain a betrayal that has no name? How do you categorize emotional incest, even unintentional, even non-physical, in a world that doesn't prepare families for that kind of collapse? Diane lives alone now. The house is clean but hollow. Her phone rarely rings. Sometimes she replays old moments in her mind, trying to find the turning point. The exact second a lonely mother became emotionally attached to her son in a way that unraveled a family. She thought she was protecting her heart, but secrets, even the ones wrapped in longing, don't stay buried. They rise, they demand to be seen, and when they do, they take everything with them. The truth is this: emotional cheating doesn't require physical closeness. It requires secrecy, dependence, and misplaced intimacy. Diane learned that love, misguided, confused, desperate love, can destroy more than trust. It can destroy roles, it can destroy families, and it always eventually comes to light. Because no matter how well you hide the pieces, the brokenness always finds a way to show.